If freedom is to survive and prosper, it will require the sacrifice, the effort and the thoughtful attention of every citizen. The stories of past courage can teach, they can offer hope, they can provide inspiration. But they cannot supply courage itself. For this each man must look into his own soul. A man does what he must, in spite of personal consequences, in spite of obstacles and dangers and pressures, and that is the basis of all human morality. Let us not emphasize all on which we differ but all we have in common. Let us consider not what we fear separately but what we share together. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I have said that control of arms is a mission that we undertake particularly for our children and our grandchildren and that they have no lobby in Washington. If more politicians knew poetry, and more poets knew politics, I am convinced the world would be a little better place in which to live. Change is the law of life. And those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. Children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future. For one true measure of a nation is its success in fulfilling the promise of a better life for each of its members. Let this be the measure of our nation. The success of this government, and thus the success of our nation, depends in the last analysis upon the quality of our career services. War will exist until that distant day when the conscientious objector enjoys the same reputation and prestige that the warrior does today. In the Chinese language, the word crisis is composed of two characters, one representing danger and the other, opportunity. We can say with some assurance that, although children may be the victims of fate, they will not be the victims of our neglect. The federal budget can and should be made an instrument of prosperity and stability, not a deterrent to recovery. We must never forget that art is not a form of propaganda, it is a form of truth. The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining, by filling three basic gaps in our anti-recession protection. In serving his vision of the truth, the artist best serves his nation. This country cannot afford to be materially rich and spiritually poor. A nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces but also by the men it honors, the men it remembers. A man may die, nations may rise and fall, but an idea lives on. We have become more and more not a nation of athletes but a nation of spectators. I have a nice home, the office is close by, and the pay is good. But however close we sometimes seem to that dark and final abyss, let no man of peace and freedom despair. For he does not stand alone. Dante once said that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who in periods of moral crisis maintain their neutrality. This nation has tossed its cap over the wall of space, and we have no choice but to follow it. Forgive your enemies, but never forget their names. The rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. We must find time to stop and thank the people who make a difference in our lives. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich.